Howdy and welcome back to the Ineligibles podcast. My name is Will Stone. He is Chase Caldwell. Just Chase and I on the podcast today here on a uh, Friday morning, a little bit rainy outside after a 48-33 loss to Miami. I know we're all down in the dumps about that. Uh, Trust me, we're right there with you. But we've still got a show to do, and we didn't want to make it seem like we just up and quit after one game. So here we are. We're back at it. Chase was actually at the game and in Miami for the weekend. So Chase, let's hear about your experience over there.
Yeah, sounds good. Apologize for the delay. Will's been a sicko all week, and I've been very
Bad sick.
busy trying to get back into it. So, Miami was a good time. It was fun with the group that we went with. A couple of the guys. I did not get a chance to see Mac, which very much saddened me. I got to see some of the other managers, but um, the thing that I wasn't expecting, because we stayed in Fort Lauderdale, was how far Miami was from Fort Lauderdale, and because the stadium's like halfway between the two cities,
Right.
But it was a good hour drive to go into South Beach, and so um, wasn't expecting that much of distance. It's kind of like Dallas and Fort Worth, and the stadium's in Arlington, and so to go
Yeah.
from one side of Dallas to the other side of Fort Worth, it's a lot of driving. And so anyhow, logistics wise, it was kind of all over the place just because of where we were staying. But Miami was a neat city. I mean, it has to be in your taste. It's not quite mine, but it reminds me a bit of Beach Vegas. Just kind of the I don't know, the atmosphere is like Beach Vegas. I don't know how else to explain it.
So I've got
than
I've
that.
got what's probably a dumb question,
Yeah.
but is gambling legal in Florida?
I
Like,
don't
are
know
there
if it is in Florida. There are casinos in Miami, so I'd assume
there
so.
are okay.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what
So
I've known, like as far as like gambling destinations, like obviously Vegas, New Orleans, Shreveport, like like all of Louisiana,
yeah,
and then like Atlantic City, and then I'm like, where else is like a big gambling, destination? And I guess I didn't
Oklahoma.
realize that casinos were big in Miami. Yeah, Oklahoma.
So I don't know the laws surrounding it necessarily, but there were some casinos there, um and yeah, it just I tried the South Beach diet for like a week and it didn't really work, but
What does that
you know,
consist of?
I don't know. I was just kidding around. I didn't actually go on a diet. I just know it's called the South Beach diet. Um,
You took your talents there.
yeah, but it was cool. I mean, it was. We went and saw the beach for a little bit. We did see a little bit of South Beach. My big takeaway for Miami though, is this game very much felt like an NFL game to me. It didn't really feel like a college game because the game's not on campus. So we never really saw Miami's campus. You go to the game and like the majority of the people aren't students, which I guess it's that way at most college games, but they're also not alumni, so it's like
Yeah,
mainly people that live in Miami, um, that just represent Miami because it's their city, which is fine. I'm not no disrespect. It's just more of like, it was very different. Felt very, very much like a professional NFL game. Even like the people that were hyping up the student section. Like there's a man and a woman that had a microphone, and they would go around like doing things throughout the game. Like they were like 40 or 50 years old. Like they weren't students. You know what I
yeah,
mean? So
yeah.
it was that part was different, definitely different from what you see at other college football programs. But I mean, that stadium was probably 70% full maybe, but for as full as it was loud.
Yeah.
They were loud and raucous and all of that. So they definitely love their team, definitely support their team. But like I said, it's just a much different atmosphere. It just felt like you were at more of a professional game than a collegiate game.
As far as the fan distribution, was there quite a bit of maroon in the stadium, or was it mostly Miami fans?
It was mostly orange, yeah.
Really?
There was a section of maroon that you could see, but um, and I saw a good bit of Aggies, but I'd say it was 95% orange.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, I'm glad y'all went and had a good time outside of the 3 hours that the game took place.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously we're here to talk about that. We lost. Obviously, we're 1-1 on the season. 48-33 loss on the road to the Hurricanes. Um, a lot of people, and in that moment, it felt like last year again. Just in that moment, though, like since I've had time to kind of settle down and and marinate on it and let it kind of uh, heal, I guess. Um, I'm still pretty pissed to be honest, but not as mad as I was in the moment, and not like, oh, like we're done. This team sucks. We're gonna go 6-6, and it's just the same old thing all over again. Um, I thought that it was different than most of last year's losses. Like last year was a bunch of teams that you felt like we played better than, and then we'd make stupid mistakes and then we'd lose. Um, or we just wouldn't, we'd no show entirely. But it seemed like Miami is a pretty good team, and I'm super interested to see what they do the rest of the year, because they're similar to us. They've definitely got more of a blue blood history than us, but they've been down for a little bit. They are a very proud program, and they've been recruiting well and coaching well and trying to get better. And seems like like they're on the right path. Brought in new coordinators on both sides of the ball in the offseason. And honestly, I feel like we got outplayed and we got outcoached. So it's hard to like we faced a good team. They were on it. They played very well, and they beat us. So it was like, I think you said it yesterday, they beat us fair and square. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think that sums it up.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, my takeaway from it is a little bit different than yours because I really wasn't all that pissed, and maybe it was because I was there at the game with some Miami fans, and so like it lessened the blow. I don't know, but really, like I watching that game, I didn't, even though we lost, like I didn't walk away with my head down and feeling like, oh, this season is going to be terrible. Like I walked away saying like, you know what, that we lost, but we lost. Like it was very, it just to me felt like just a straight up loss. You know what I mean? And I watching how we played on offense, I felt like we played really good. Watching how we played on defense, I felt we played porous, but I didn't ever feel like it was, I never felt like we played terribly. Like I felt like we were maybe 70% of what we could be, in terms of talent level. I don't think we played all the way up to what we could have done. I definitely think it was a winnable game that we could have won, but I just think they were the better team on Saturday, and that's it. Now, if we were to match up at the end of the season, it might be a different story, but I just for me, I'm more so looking at it saying I just think they were the better team.
Yeah. And I think they're you know on Saturday they were absolutely the better team. I thought their game plan was pretty good. They put a lot of pressure on Connor, um, and I thought Connor, like obviously had his first turnovers of his career. On one of them, I can't remember the second interception, but I know on the first one, Anais slipped and kind of fell down. It probably would have been a perfect pass, but Anais wasn't there to catch it, so a defender caught it, and just some bad luck there. But um, he was under pressure all day. He was getting hit all day, and I don't necessarily think it was on the offensive line. I think it was they were bringing blitzes and things like that. I saw I don't know the number exactly, but I saw Carter Carls put this out on Twitter that through 2 weeks, no quarterback has been blitzed more than Connor Wigman. It's some like crazy percentage, like 70% or something like that. But and when you do that, like in Jimbo's press conference, he was like, "Hey, like there was times when Connor should have been able to see that or read that, and like when you get blitzed as a quarterback, you have to get the ball out quick, and you have a hot read or hot route or whatever, and maybe sometimes he was just like a tick slow to get that, but it was his his sixth start, I think. So, um, I'm still very confident in what he can do, and we got 10 more ball games. Like this isn't like we lost our a game in week 2, the season's over. Like you go out and get a win this week, obviously against ULM, and then you got 2 conference games before Bama comes in here. We'll talk about them in a minute. But you can still turn this thing around here in the first part of the season and get back on the right track.
Yeah, I
What?
mean, I'm of the opinion that anybody that's really hanging their head on this loss is just completely ignoring the reality that this game doesn't really matter to the extent of our schedule. When you look at who is the best in the SEC West, who are the top teams there, and who did we think coming into this year would be the top teams there. You've got Bama and LSU, who are both 1-1 as well as we are. So the three of us are all 1-1 going into week 3, and that's you know I'm sure you could look at the rankings and say, oh yeah, but they lost to Texas and Florida State. Well, I would argue that Miami is as good of a team as both of those teams. Maybe the rest of the year will prove us wrong, or prove me wrong. I mean, maybe Miami will go 5-7 again, but I don't expect that. I think they looked solid. I think they looked like a good team, and the ACC is wide open because Clemson got embarrassed by Duke, and they've got a lot to play for, and they just beat an SEC team, and so really I'm looking at Miami and Florida State as being the two teams that are going to contend for the ACC, and if Texas defend or plays for the Big 12, well, I mean, look at that. We got 3 really solid SEC teams, all without non-conference losses. We might as well be starting at 0-0. You know what I mean?
I mean, and those 3 were the top 3 projected in the West.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So if you're hanging your head on Miami saying, "Oh my gosh, this season's going to be so bad because we lost in week 2," we don't have a conference loss. We haven't even played conference ball yet. So like that's what really matters long term. And like I would compare this to 2012. How fun of a year was 2012? Well, it was great. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, well, we lost to Florida at the very beginning, and then we lost to LSU, and so we had 2 losses, and yet we still talk about that as if it was one of the best years ever, because it was. It was fun. You know what I mean? And so I don't know. I guess maybe mentally I was prepared for the potential of us beating Miami. Like if you go back 2 weeks ago and listen to, I said that I expected us to probably go 10-2 with a loss somewhere that we might not should have lost, and then one that we probably should. Miami was one of the ones I was kind of more so. I guess this might sound stupid, but if we lost, I was hoping that we would lose to Miami and not to an SEC team.
Yeah.
I didn't want to drop a game to Arkansas or Ole Miss or Mississippi State, which I know is still a very valid potential that could happen. I'm just saying, if I had my preference, if I was to lose a game, I would rather lose to Miami than I would some of the SEC teams this year, simply
Yeah.
because it's non-conference and it doesn't really impact the SEC standings.
Yeah. And I get why people are pissed, and like I can definitely relate. It's kind of the way that some of the things went in that game, and like tackling in the secondary left a lot to be desired at times. Um, just straight up rushing four on defense, and uh, Van Dyke having all day to throw.
Mhm.
That stuff, it's it's frustrating because we know we have the talent on that side of the ball. I mean, look, you go back to a year ago, and and say, hey, next year our offense is going to be pretty good. Our defense is going to be kind of worrisome. People be like, what? Do you, like that's nonsense talk. Like,
Mhm.
our offense was so bad a year ago, and I think they can be a really good offense this year. Defensively, the talent is there, and maybe we just needed a bit of a wake up call. Be like, hey, the plan we had, the scheme we had, um, that didn't get it done, and try some new things going forward, because it's not really a lack of talent on that side of the ball, I don't think. But there's, like we said before, there's 10 more games, you got 10 more chances to go out and improve, and it's not like teams can't improve during the year.
Right.
Like the 2012 team, like they were okay and lost to Florida the first half against SMU. The next week they're like, oh my god, like this offense sucks. Johnny sucks. We suck. Like, get rid of this someone guy. And then
Yeah.
things turned on pretty quick after that. So, um, and the biggest thing of all is that this was on a national stage. If
Mhm.
this was some random week in the middle of the season that nobody was really watching, it wouldn't matter. But the fact that this was the third most watched game of that day, and people went straight from watching us lose to watching Texas beat Alabama. That's what makes it sting. If those were on different weekends, people would feel a little bit differently. Not a lot, but a little bit differently. And the optics of that suck for right now. But we have 10 more games. Everyone has 10 more games. Uh, there's a lot of ball left, and if we get to it here in 3 or 4 weeks, and we're sitting at 2-4, I'll be like, yeah, hey, this is bad. This is very bad, and
Mhm.
we need to do something about it.
Yeah, and I mean, I get it. I get the optics of it. Really, I would say that just kind of, I'd say Texas's win over Bama would just kind of overshadow our loss, if that makes sense. Like, I don't think anybody outside of A&M and Texas fans would merge those two together. Like, if you're a kid, a recruit in Mississippi, I don't think you're being like, oh well, I'm going to start looking at the Longhorns now because the Aggies lost and the Longhorns won, so they must be better. And who's to say that we don't beat Bama in a couple weeks and Texas loses that day? You just don't know. And
Yeah,
so for me personally, I'm just looking at it, from the standpoint of, okay, what's the good, what's the bad? The bad is how our defense played. Our offense played great. I think we had really good special teams play, except for that we gave up you know, a
the kick.
kick return, but that was a very blatant holding call on 12 that didn't get called. But there again, that was only fair because there was like four false starts that we had throughout the game that never got called. One of them ended up as a touchdown. Like we can't say it was the refs because there was definitely a lot of bad calls that went our way, that the Miami fans were upset about. And every time I'm watching them, I'm like, yeah, that was kind of flagrant, on our end. But so it wasn't like that we were playing against the refs. It wasn't like we didn't play well on offense or special teams. It was our defense was porous. I mean, Van Dyke had all the time in the world to throw that ball. And so then that's where the real problem. I agree with you on this. Tackling was a problem. So these are two things that I said last week. Were my takeaways from New Mexico was I was a little bit worried about defense because it just seemed like we should have been more dominant against New Mexico on defense, and we should have imposed our will and all that kind of stuff. And I just felt like it wasn't really that level. We were throwing a lot of weight around in that game, but nobody was wrapping up. It was these hit stick hits, and nobody was wrapping up, and that worried me. Well, then come this game, guess what? Nobody's wrapping up, and we have all these missed tackles that we shouldn't have.
Yeah.
But what we really shouldn't have when we have this many 4 and 5 star D linemen, we should have a pass rush of some sort. And because we didn't, it gave Van Dyke and their receivers the ability to do the scramble drill. Why were
Yeah.
we so good with Johnny Manziel? Well, because he could escape the pocket. He could sit back there for 30 seconds until somebody just happened to get open, and then he could throw it to him. You go back and watch this game, that's what you're going to see. Almost every play that they had a big play, it was a scramble drill. That is very, very hard to defend when you're a defensive back because you have no idea. I mean, you could cover them all day long, and 99% of the play you could cover them, but it just takes that 1% for them to step out past you, and if the ball's right there, they're gone. And
Yeah.
so that's where the real problem that we had on this game was that we didn't get any pressure to the quarterback,
Yeah.
and that's where. But to your point, like I see everybody, throwing a little temper tantrum, hissy fit about, oh, we need to get rid of DJ Durkin and he's a problem, and I just see all these meltdowns going on, and I just don't agree with them. But I would say to your point earlier, last year we had a great defense and struggled on offense. If we would have said, hey, we're going to struggle on defense and have a great offense this year, you'd have thought we were crazy. But that's the case. Well, we had Durkin last year too. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things that I think our problems are fixable. I think that's the thing for me is like I think there's parts of scheme that maybe we didn't scheme well enough against Miami on defense, but that doesn't mean that there's no such thing as pass rush in our defense. You know what I mean? That does that doesn't mean that that won't be fixed next week. And so I just I don't know. I think that I think the season isn't over. Yeah, I just don't think this is another 5-7 season. I still feel as high about
Yeah.
our team as I did before.
So yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on with that. This it's not going to be a repeat of last year. At least I don't think so at this time. We need more data, obviously.
Hmm.
Um, but I think last year with the defense, the biggest issue was the run defense. Like teams were just able to kind of run, you know, hog wild, and like we gave up like 390 yards rushing to Ole Miss. Uh, Arkansas ran it, Bama ran it. Um, Even LSU in the game we won, they ran the ball pretty well on us.
Hmm.
This year so far, the run defense has looked pretty dang good.
Yeah.
Maybe not to the elite standards of like 2020 or 2021, but like still a really, really good run defense, much improved from last season. And you know, against most of the teams we play, that's probably gonna, you know, keep us in the game, like at least on like from a defensive standpoint. But
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think it is fixable. I think you it's such a so not to talk too much NFL here, but I'm a diehard Cowboys fan, and if anybody watched the game between the Cowboys and the Giants um, on Sunday night, it was a stark contrast to what A&M was doing on defense. The Cowboys were in the backfield on every single play that the Giants ran. Daniel Jones was running for his life. We had like 7 sacks, and obviously I know this is very different things, but I'm just saying to go from watching us get zero pressure to the Cowboys getting pressure on every single play, I was just like, what can we do differently here
Yeah.
and, and get this done? But
Well,
like
that's why I think like there is pressure that would be in the play calling. We might not have called those plays, but we have those plays, if that makes sense. And so we can dial up pressure, I'm sure. It's just we didn't. And so whenever it comes time to do that, if they're going and watching film this week and saying, "Hey, we need to make a change here. We need to get more pressure on the quarterback." He carved us up because we didn't get any pressure. Then we have the talent on defense to make that change. And so that's why I'm not worried, is simply because, well, like, if we get a couple more games and a couple more games are looking just like this one did, where we're not rushing anybody and we're not getting any pressure to the quarterback or anything, then yeah, I might start to go the other direction. But now I'm just saying, hey, this is a one game that maybe we underestimated them. Maybe we thought that we could go out there and be pretty vanilla and sell out to the run, and whenever they run, and just you know that our DBs could beat their receivers, and that we didn't really need a pass rush, and we were wrong. And maybe for the rest of the year we don't make that mistake again, and
yeah,
that's what more so I guess that I'm hopeful for. But I'm also, you know, I'm just not giving up on the season. I feel like there's been too many people that have just thrown their hands up and been like, oh my God, here we go again, and
yeah.
it's just too early for that.
So as it sits here today, looking at the next 10 ball games, who is the most threatening team out of that bunch? Like, who do you think? Like, oh my god, like that's going to be a tough matchup. I know there's several good teams, but um, not to take anything away from what Texas was able to do this weekend, but is this the weakest Bama team in the last 12 years?
It looks like it right now. Um, but I mean, I know the talent that they have on their team, so
Yeah, and
you
like
know,
like
it makes it hard for me to say yes, because they're still just as talented as they've ever been. It's just they just
right,
don't look very put together this year.
and that's the thing about perception. And you mentioned this earlier. We're like, what if we look up in 3 weeks and we've got wins over Arkansas and Auburn, um, and then you go out and beat Bama by 2 touchdowns.
Hmm.
It changes the whole equation here,
Yeah,
uh, and that's why I think it's not time to just cut bait on the season. This thing's over. Like that's not reasonable as it sits today. Like we still have like this team isn't just going to quit after one loss. I don't think they're designed that way. I don't think our coaching staff is designed that way. So, um, it remains to be seen. And I'm going to be watching every week. I'm going to watch against ULM, see what they do, and I'll be uh, tuned in to Auburn. I'll be in Dallas for Arkansas and watching that one, and then and see how we do. And we're going to keep getting on here every week and let y'all know about it and what we think. But
yeah. I mean,
I think
I'll be at every game until November, so
yeah,
it's something that um, I still think that we're poised to have a really really fun season. Um, I I think I think the fans have given up quicker than the team has. And I understand with battered Aggie syndrome, and the idea of like, oh, here we go again. I understand that, but again, I'm looking at it as I think I think we played well against a good Miami team and lost straight up, and we lost, but we lost standing on our feet. We lost, in a fashion that wasn't. We weren't just absolutely decimated. We weren't embarrassed like Clemson was. We weren't, we weren't really messy on the ball. Like we played clean. We just we just didn't win at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So I think as of right now, to answer your question, what worries me the most for this season is high-powered offenses. You know, offenses that can do what Miami did against us, and that's where I'd be worried probably. Tennessee, Mississippi State, or Ole Miss. Maybe Mississippi State. I hadn't really watched them much this year, but and maybe LSU. Bama right now, they're just too suspect for me right now on offense to where um, I'm not saying that Bama you always have to put into that fold, right?
Oh
Of
yeah.
teams that we are daunting on the schedule. But to your point, like I don't think they look like the elite Bama teams of old. But it's mainly just because their offense. I sorry, I would put our offense over their offense any
Oh, for
day,
sure.
and I think the matchup of our offense against their defense versus their offense against our defense, I think we might win that matchup, right? Versus Tennessee and Ole Miss, and we might not win that matchup, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm very. Uh, and those games are pretty far off right now, but I'm very interested to see how we try to defend a team like Tennessee, who goes, 4 or 5 wide, spreads it out, and runs a quick pace.
Hmm.
And what kind of plan we have to defend that. It's going to be interesting to watch. But a team like Alabama, I feel like you can probably stack the box a little bit and uh, shut the run game down and put him in long situations and make Milrow beat you with his arm, which is kind of what Texas tried to do, and
Right.
they were successful in that. So, um, yeah, I mean, I know we've said it several times already, but it's just not it's not over. You can't just throw in the towel and be like, oh well, lost the game. This is it. We're going to lose all the rest of them, and
Yeah.
because that's I can promise you, this team is not thinking that way, and it's probably not based in reality. Like I know, like trust me, I get the frustrations. Like we as fans invest a lot of our emotions into this. A lot of folks have invested a lot of actual money into this, and after the last season, it's reasonable to be a little fatigued by that and a little frustrated. But it's football, and uh, we got a lot of season left, and if things get worse, if we go lose to Auburn, we're gonna be like, hey, we got some issues. This is worrisome. If we go and trounce Auburn and beat them by 20 plus points, we're gonna be like, hey, you know, we told you guys not to freak out just yet. So,
Yeah.
but that's kind of where I'm at right now. I think we're on the same page there.
Yeah. No, I'm with you.
Um, what else is there to get to? I mean, do we want to go national? Do we want to stay in the SEC? Anything else you want to get to?
Um, not not particularly. I can kind of look through our games here on what's coming up. Did you watch Miami last night?
I saw they scored a bunch of points.
Scored 48, which
That sounds
seems to be a
familiar.
number. Uh, I mean, I don't have particularly any games upcoming that I guess Tennessee, Florida is this week. I'd like to see that one. Let's see what else here.
This is kind of a low key week, but week 4, and obviously we'll be on next week to talk about that. But week 4 is a banger of a week, and not really with regards to A&M. Like we play Auburn, that's a fine game, but like everyone else is just it's pretty wild. LSU Mississippi State is this weekend. That one's interesting.
Yeah, that one is interesting. I'll probably watch that one.
If LSU starts 1-2, and they always struggle with them. Like they're kind of like us in that regard. Like
Hmm.
and it's in Starkville, so yeah, that one's definitely got my eye on that one.
Yeah, no,
Georgia. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say what you were about to say.
Georgia
Georgia,
plays
South
South Carolina.
Carolina. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, with regards to the national kind of landscape and Georgia, um, I don't think any team is elite this year. Sometimes there's one, sometimes there's 3 or 4. Uh, this year, I don't think there's any. I think there's a lot of good teams, a lot of really good teams at the top, but I don't think anybody's just completely infallible and unstoppable. So um, I don't think Georgia plays anybody that tough. Like South Carolina's probably their toughest game so far, but um, I don't know. I don't know if they're the same level of dominance that they have been. Obviously Bama isn't. Ohio State's got quarterback issues, among other things. Um, USC looks good so far. They've been scoring a lot of points.
Yeah.
And obviously Florida State, Texas, Michigan, Penn State. Um, but yeah, in I mean Colorado's 2-0.
I'll be interested to see Georgia Tech versus Ole Miss. That's a fun
Oh,
matchup.
I didn't even see that one. Come on, Haynes King,
Yeah.
put in some work.
So that would be real good if we start out with Ole Miss, A&M, LSU, and Alabama with one loss going into week 4
Yeah, well,
from
and
non-conference.
you mentioned Tennessee, Florida. I don't know what to make of that one. Um,
Yeah,
it
nobody
it's
does.
it's in the swamp. Tennessee they ended up beating Virginia pretty bad, but early on I was like, you know, like that quarterback obviously he can throw the ball 100 yards, but uh, you know he's not. I don't think he's as good as what they had last year.
Hmm.
So very intrigued to see that game and see if they can uh, and do what they did a season ago.
Yeah.
But all in all, it's a pretty it's one of the lighter weeks. I think
Hmm.
you got the Nerd Bowl, Duke and Northwestern. Uh, Northwestern won a game. Who did they beat? They're awful. So whoever they beat must have been terrible. Um, yeah, that's for some reason Alabama's on the road
They
at
beat
USF.
UTEP.
They beat UTEP. Oh, come
Mhm.
on, Miners.
Alabama's on the road at USF.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know why.
What?
Do not know why.
What in the world?
What's that uh, stadium going to look like? It's probably going to be Alabama fans.
No telling.
um, Kansas State goes to Missouri. That's probably the most or one of the more intriguing games of the week. I think Kansas State's pretty good. I think Missouri's okay, but if K State goes in there and and kind of puts in some work on them, they're 15 right now. I think they're right there in it for the Big 12 along with Oklahoma and Texas.
Yeah. Yeah, overall it's kind of a light week. I mean, there's some intriguing matchups there, but nothing that just really strikes my fancy. So,
Yeah,
um, like you said, next week it looks like we've got some really good matchups. So,
next week
um,
is absolutely loaded.
yeah.
I'm very excited.
Well, I'm hoping to see, going back to A&M on, what to expect for this week. I I'm just hoping to see some changes on defense that make us look more dominant. I want to come in and dial up some pressure and you know, this is a warm up game for us. It should be, get us ready to go for Auburn. I think we need to strengthen it up on defense. There's no reason why, with the talent that we have, there's no reason why the defense is our weak point right now, and that
Yeah,
needs to be fixed. And I think it will. I'm very confident it will.
and and for me, even against a team like Louisiana Monroe, like there's no reason to try to be vanilla. Like
Hmm.
if there's things to fix, go out and fix them this week. Like don't wait for Auburn.
Right.
I don't care about putting it on film for them. We need the reps, obviously, and if I'm just curious to see if there's a different approach on defense and on offense. See what they do. But
Yeah.
um, it's just I just like watching my team play. I like to see what
Yeah.
they're about. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
um,
Um,
what time is our game this week? It's at
that's a
3. Okay.
great question. I think it's Yeah.
All right. I've got a wedding tomorrow, so I can probably catch the first half of this.
Oh man.
I know.
I hate
Fall
when I
wins,
have to.
man.
Yeah, I hate when I lose friends. Every year there's one, and I'm like, yep, sorry.
Yep.
I'll make it. I'll make the next one. Shouldn't have been during football season.
Oh man. Well, is that all we got for today? I think
I
we
think
got
so. I
all
think
of our
so.
opinions out there.
Thank y'all for watching on this Friday morning.
Yeah, Brittany just commented. She said we have back-to-back weddings. I'm only going to one of them, so I picked the one where we played ULM and not Auburn.
Man, sounds like people I wouldn't be friends with.
and they're all Aggies, so like I don't
So
know,
they're 2%ers.
maybe so. No, I love weddings. Love being invited to them. Makes me feel special. Thanks so much. Well, yeah. Uh, that's gonna be it for us today. Chase, thanks for getting on a Friday morning.
You
Well,
bet.
there's probably better ways to spend it.
Probably at the
But
office would be better, but
yeah,
you know.
yeah, I definitely need to go check my teams, make sure I didn't miss any messages. But thank y'all for tuning in. A pretty good turnout on this one, looks like. So uh, we'll we'll be back next week to break down A&M and UL Monroe. Look ahead to week 4. But he's Chase Caldwell. I'm Will Stone. This is the NL's podcast. We'll see you next week.